TRC EDC back again with another knife video. This is the TRM Atom, the Three Rivers Manufacturing Atom. This is a small company. I believe they're out of Pittsburgh, which is where the name Three Rivers comes from. And this is the micarta version. This comes in a couple different versions. There's a red and black Kevlar and carbon fiber version. There's a full carbon fiber version. I believe there's a carbon fiber fluted version, or I don't know if you call it fluted, but it's rounded and contoured. There's also I believe there's a G10 version, although I could be wrong about that. There's a red linen micarta version. So there's a couple different versions of this. There's also the Neutron, which is a smaller version of this that came out before it. I want to just talk about this knife for a minute because it is... well, this is a review, but this is an excellent knife. And I'm going to start out the review by saying, great job, TRM, first of all. Second of all, this is a simple design. And for those of you who haven't, I'm going to do some size comparisons. My first size comparison is going to be the CJRB Centros. And I'm just doing that for perspective. But I compared these two knives in a video earlier on my channel where I did my review of the Centros, excuse me, which I called the Poor Man's TRM Atom. Go ahead and check that video out. This is a $35 knife. This is around $200. Go ahead and check that video out. I still recommend both knives, but you should definitely check out that video before you make any purchasing decisions. This knife is currently out of stock with TRM. It only comes back into stock periodically, but I thought this video might be helpful, especially since they just sold out, to those looking on the secondary market and for when they restock. So one of the immediate knocks I have to talk about with this knife are going to be the fact that they're just not that available. That being said, it's not really their fault. They're a smaller company, but just something to be aware of. Now, additional size comparisons. We've got the Spyderco Para Military 2, Spyderco Para 3. So you see it's very similar size to the PM2. Benchmade 940 and Benchmade Bugout. Benchmade Griptilian. And Spyderco Shaman. And let's just go with the Endura XM18, which is the same size as the ZT0562. All right, that should be enough size comparisons. All right, so let's talk about the good and bad of the knife. So, good right off the bat. Right off the bat, the blade shape on this is excellent. This is it's just an extremely useful blade shape. The curve on it goes, it's a gradual curve, it goes up. There's almost no flat, which, you know, I usually prefer a little bit of flat, but the curve up is so gradual that I don't even miss the flat, which is excellent. This is not like the Spidey Chef, which just goes crazy upward very fast. And it's one of the reasons I actually haven't gotten a hold of a Spidey Chef yet. Another thing I'll have to mention is I really like the way they do the logo here. As you can see, the logo is etched into the knife, and it has that nice sort of diamond-like etching that's into it. This is not, you know, a printed on logo like you see on a lot of other production knives. So that's definitely a huge plus for me. The same thing is true for the stamping of the TRM and USA 20CV. Very little billboarding here. That's stamped in. Looks very classy and just helps with the overall aesthetic of the knife. The finish on the blade is excellent. Looks like a nice satin finish. It's done very well, and so that's another excellent thing. The micarta is really nice. It came a little bit too polished for my liking. I usually like it a little rougher, but over the last couple of days through use, it's roughed up a little bit. I guess some of the polish has started to wear off. It's also started to get some I guess, the oils from your hand in here, and so you're starting to see the micarta change color, which is one of the things I love about micarta. The sides over here are chamfered, which is nice, and you get a rougher texture where it's chamfered than where it's polished over here. The pocket clip is recessed into the scale. You can see there's a cutout here for it, and it's recessed in. So the good part is it's recessed in. However, the hardware itself is not recessed. I would have liked to see that, but with how thin the scales are, I understand why they did it this way. One of the great things is just how thin this is. You can take a look of this, the blade stock versus a Benchmade Bugout. So people talk about how thin and slicey the Bugout is. This is basically the same size stock on a much larger knife, which is excellent. The grind here is really nice. It comes up most of the way, and so you get a nice tall grind, which comes to an even slicier point on this blade stock. The behind the edge thickness is extremely thin. Again, I don't do exact measurements, but this thing is, and I don't like using this term, but this thing is a laser through cardboard, which is excellent. The liners in here are nested liners. I don't know if you can see. See if the camera will pick it up. I haven't opened this up yet, but I don't see any milling on the actual liners themselves, which is interesting because this knife is so light that I would have thought they would have been milled out. I would have bet on it. The only thing, there's no backspacer. It's just got a couple of standoffs here. And the nice thing about the standoffs is they're screwed into the scales, or into the liners, not the scales. So you don't see any screws on the actual scales themselves. So that's extremely nice attention to detail there. You do have screws over here, but I understand why they did that. They had to attach the liners to this, you know, at a couple of points. They had to have 2 points on each side where they were at least attaching the liners. So definitely understand that as well. Now, one of the other massively great things about this is the action. It's not drop shot, but it is one of the smoothest actions of any knife that I own. If you just roll it with your finger, it's so smooth. And the reason for that is they polish the washers to make this have just this massively smooth operation. And I just sit here half the time, you know, flicking it open and closing it like this, because it's extremely satisfying from a fidget standpoint to have something that's silky and glass smooth. I think short of getting a CRK, this is the smoothest action you're going to get, short of getting a CRK on washers anyway. I should mention this is a washer knife, not a bearing knife. All right, so that's all the good, and I will say the fit and finish on this is generally excellent. I mean, you can see everything is fitted in there. I talked about the fact that the standoffs are in the liners. There's just a lot of attention to detail on here, and it's extremely nice. Centering is right on point. Really excellent attention to detail. What's bad about this knife? There's a couple of things. One is, although the sides of this are chamfered well, they did leave this part right here somewhat sharp. And normally I wouldn't care, but because one of the best things about this knife is being able to close it like this, a lot of times the inside of your finger is dragging across that sort of, that sharp part of this. So if I had a criticism for them, and this is an easily fixable issue, is going forward, I'd like to see them, and I could probably modify this myself and do it by sanding it down a little bit, but I'd like to see them chamfer this edge a little bit, just like they do the other edges here when they're doing the next batch. You know, if in case they're interested in some constant quality improvement, just like Spyderco is. The hardware here is a little plain, but I think it fits the aesthetic of the knife. As you can see, it's just a plain Chicago screw on that side and plain Torx head on that side. And the standoffs are also plain, but again, I think it fits the aesthetic of the knife. The pocket clip is another drawback for me, although it's recessed, and that is an excellent point, and it has good, decently good retention. It slides in easy. Functionally, it's an excellent pocket clip, but it doesn't match the blade at all or any of the hardware, so it just kind of looks a little off. I'm not sure why they made that choice, but it's just something to be aware of. I think other than those two issues, the fact that they didn't chamfer here, and the pocket clip. Actually, there is a third issue, is the thumb studs. The thumb studs are, let me show you what they look like. So they're sort of two-tiered, as you can see, and they have, this edge along the top. As you flick the knife open and closed, it is going to start wearing on your thumb. And a lot of people complain about Sebenza finger, because the Sebenza's thumb studs end up hurting their finger because it comes to a sharp point on top, as you can see. So this doesn't come to a sharp point on top, but because it has sharp points on the sides here, the actual operation of the thumb stud gets a little sharp over time. That's one thing I pointed out in the Centros video, where I think they did a better job on the thumb studs, because the thumb studs are just, a lot larger. They don't have any sharp things on the top, and they're just a lot larger, so you can get a little bit of purchase here and get a lot of purchase underneath there. I think also Benchmade does a good job with thumb studs in general, just to give you an idea of what their thumb studs look like. Let's take a look at the Griptilian. So the thumb studs on the Griptilian, again, are mostly flat, and they have that little bit of rounded purchase on top that gives some grip, and they just, you're just sort of coming down on top of this, and it never really hurts your thumb. So I guess those three things are, I would like to see maybe a little bit of a redesign on the thumb studs. And just as an FYI, the back thumb stud is up against, there's a cutout here, which is actually done perfectly for you to get purchase underneath here, but you can't do it under here, so there's no spidey flicking this. No spidey flicking the thumb studs on this. I've tried a bunch of times, and because the top side of this is so smooth and there's no jimping or way to get underneath there, your finger just slides off the top. It doesn't actually spidey flick it. So overall, this is probably one of the best knives I've reviewed this year, and I would highly recommend you get it. If you can get your hands on it. I wouldn't go ahead and pay over the $200. I think it's well worth the $200 you're going to spend on it. I wouldn't pay over the $200 to get it on the secondary market. I'd probably wait and just get it when they do the next drop. It wasn't that hard to get if you're there on time for the drop. So just a heads up. One other note. Their customer service was excellent. They had a glitch in their system, and I didn't get a shipping notification. It did ship, it just didn't notify me. And I called in, and they said they will do whatever it takes to make it right if there was a problem, no matter what it was. And that was excellent. I really appreciated that, and so it's nice to see small businesses standing behind their product. That's it. Go ahead and like the video, leave a comment. Let me know if you've had experience with TRM, what you think of their knives, the Neutron, the Atom, and if you have any questions, also leave them in the comment below. Have a happy new year, guys, and don't forget to enter the giveaway. If you have not entered the giveaway, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you get all of my content. Thanks so much.